6:52. Welcome back. It's a great day for this Tuesday. It's the 14th of April as we welcome Tiffany Allison to our desk here. She was past president of the Criminal Justice Club at DMAC, which we just learned. That's very impressive. But you're here to talk about something else.
I am. I'm here to talk about domestic violence today.
You are an advocate for talking about this topic.
Yeah, I am. I became a victim of violent crime in 2009 through domestic abuse, so I'm actually a survivor.
Wow.
And we have some legislation that's been proposed or is pending that you're wanting to talk about?
I have been lobbying for Senate File 23, the Violent Habitual Offender Bill, for about 2 years. It is not going any further this year. It did not make it through the funnel, but it will pick up where it left off last year, or excuse me, it will pick up where it left off this year when the session resumes next year.
So it's SF 23?
Yes.
Okay.
And what does it state? What are you wanting to move forward?
So basically, it would make people who are being charged with their third felony offense for a crime against a person, including domestic violence, assault, sexual assault, burglary, robbery, kidnapping, and homicide. If you're in your third strike felony for any of those crimes, you would be made to serve 85% of your sentence with no application of good or honor time. There would also be a risk assessment implemented that would start during the court process and then perpetuate out to release when that person is paroled. There would be a 1-year mandatory parole for that offender, and they would use that risk assessment then to make sure that they're responding to the rehabilitation given and then to see what services were needed in the community.
Now you mentioned 85% required to be served. What is the standard now?
Right now, offenders serve about 1/3 of their sentence, about 33%. So.
And how many of the people that are offenders that commit crimes like this, how many of them repeat the acts again?
For violent habitual offenders, the recidivism rate is about 87%, so it's pretty high.
And the reason why this is stalled, I guess, is what?
You know, your guess is as good as mine. There's been a lot of public support for the legislation. I think that a lot of people think that it's going to be a fiscal issue. Maybe even legislators at the State House feel that way. I did a study, though, on the bill, and if retroactive today, it would only affect 86 inmates that are currently incarcerated. We've really tried to narrow the net to only catch the worst of the worst in this legislation. We don't want people that shouldn't be caught in it caught. So, you know, I don't really think that it's a fiscal issue, but there were a lot of really good bills affecting domestic violence that stalled this year.
So where did the bill end up this year?
It stalled in committee.
Stalled in committee. So what can people do if they are passionate about this, as you are this morning? What can they do to maybe help further this along this next year?
I would encourage people to reach out and contact their local legislators, whether it's via email or telephone, or stopping down at the State House to talk to them in person, to urge for their support, to let them know why this is important to them and why they think it's needed and necessary.
Now, you're very passionate about this.
Yes, absolutely.
And the reason being?
So in 2009, I became a victim of domestic violence. I found out through the court process that I was my offender's 5th victim.
5th victim?
Wow.
He was sentenced to 2.5 years for my assault, but served only 10 months because of good time legislation here in Iowa. And within 12 months of his release, he reoffended with another woman and permanently disfigured her face through biting her.
Oh my goodness.
So.
Wow.
Is he out walking the streets again, or?
Not yet, but he is nearing release now. He'll probably be released within the next 8 months.
That is amazing.
It's mind-boggling. How does this happen?
Exactly.
You know, he was sentenced to 15 years for her assault, and he'll only serve 2 to 3 years because of good time legislation. So,
even though he's had previous
yes, and it's very concerning because, you know, most likely offenders like him and him, he will get out and do this to another person, and I just feel like we're letting these offenders out to find new victims, and it's very detrimental to society.
Was there one thing that was getting it hung up in the funnel that it wouldn't go through? That they mentioned, because they had to have mentioned something.
So I did hear that some of the domestic violence groups are concerned about the legislation because they feel that victims may not cooperate if they feel their offenders are going to be incarcerated for a long amount of time, especially people who are in an economic dependency where their husband is the breadwinner or the wife is the breadwinner if you know, roles are reversed as far as the abuser, and they depend on that person to feed their children. And
so the person that was abused is the one that they're concerned with get hung up. I never would have guessed that.
Yeah, domestic abuse victims struggle a lot of times with confronting their offenders and leaving the relationship, so that's pretty common.
As someone who's been through a subject of domestic violence, and thank you for being passionate and strong enough to speak with us this morning, what would you say to women that might be caught in a domestic violence situation right now?
You know, obviously I would tell them to leave. With all the research I've done and in my personal experience, it doesn't really get better, it gets worse, it escalates each time it happens. But just, you know, if you're in the beginning stages, just to talk to someone, let someone know what's happening. Someone you know, call a domestic violence hotline anonymously and speak with someone, speak with an advocate, make a safety plan to get out, and when you're ready, you know, leave, absolutely.
Is there a place someone can go if they want to learn more about this bill?
Yeah, absolutely. They can go to www.soaringhearts.org. That's my foundation, and the bill is posted there. You can actually read the bill in its entirety with its amendments, follow the bill, watch all of the media and the PSAs for the bill there. So, yeah.
Well, you're doing incredible work. Thank you so much.
Thank
for being
you.
Here.
Thank you for having
Thanks
me.
for stopping by.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. It is 8:20.